Nintendo has really undersold this amazing feature, this key feature of the Nintendo Switch 2 system, and I just don't understand why they're not shouting this from the rooftops. It's so bizarre to me. And the feature I'm talking about is backwards compatibility. Now, you remember before the Switch 2 was announced, we had all of this speculation that the Nintendo Switch 2 was not going to have backwards compatibility, and if it did, it would be terrible. You know, people were speculating how it would work, how it wouldn't work, you know, comparing it to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox. Nintendo themselves, when they finally announced that yes, the system will be backwards compatible, then it was the question of, is this your digital library only? Is this hardware? Is this the physical Switch cartridges as well? Nintendo keeps their cards very close to their chest. This is a company that doesn't really go too much into specs, which was quite surprising when they announced the Switch 2 and they were talking about things like, you know, HDR, VRR and all sorts of things like that, and you're thinking, it's not like Nintendo to talk about that. But when it comes to backwards compatibility, they didn't really delve too much into it. Yes, they gave us this website, and I will put the link in the description of this video. I would advise anybody who may have any problems with Switch 1 games that are not working on the Switch 2 or experiencing issues, to check this website here and have a look at the list of games here that may have issues, because they have actually listed them here. So you've got two PDFs, ones that are games with issues that prevent progress on the Nintendo Switch 2, including games with startup issues, and also they have a list here that says Nintendo Switch games with issues that have been resolved or are planned to be resolved by an update. So definitely have a look at these, because you may find that the game that you're having issues with is on this list here, and as you can see, they've got a whole host of games here, and they're saying that the issues are being investigated. So they're giving you information about those games. So if you've got games that are just not working or having straight up issues, definitely have a look at this list to see if it's on here. And if we go back to the other list, you've got Nintendo Switch games with issues that have been resolved or planned to be resolved by an update. So if we click on that, again, look on this list here to see if there are any games that you have that may have had issues before, to see if they're fixed or if they're close to being fixed. So, you know, Nintendo has given us some information, but what they're not doing is they're not screaming from the rooftops about backwards compatibility and how amazing it is. Like, it is up there with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series. If you think about it, 122 first-party Nintendo Switch games on the Switch 1, the majority of them, well over 99%, maybe 98, 99% of those are compatible. And then, you know, if we look at the partner games, over 15,000 partner games, so 15,000 plus third-party games, and again, well over 90+% of those have been tested and have had no issues. And that's a huge undertaking between Nintendo and, you know, partner publishers to go through that list of games and test them and make sure there are no issues. Obviously, orange here says issues were found that prevent progress in the game, includes titles with startup issues and then not compatible completely. And again, you'll find most of those on these lists here. But they've done a great job with backwards compatibility. The just performance boost that you get straight out the box with, you know, the majority of these games is nothing short of amazing, and I don't know why they're not singing this from the rooftops. This is a great feature to push people to buy the console. I don't understand why they've done it. I think the PlayStation 5 did something similar where, you know, people were umming and ahhing like, okay, it's backwards compatibility, but what is it we're expecting? Is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? And it comes out and the performance boost you get from the older games is significant. Like, straight up, Nintendo could have put out a statement. They could have put out something on the Nintendo Today app. They could have put out like a direct or something, or like actually maybe not a direct. They could have put out a video, you know, dedicated to backwards compatibility, saying like, you know, this is our chart. We've got 122 Nintendo first party Switch games. We've got over 15,000 partner games. You know, the majority of these you can just take out of your, from your Switch 1, pop it in your Switch 2, and the games work, and you may experience improvements in performance, graphical fidelity, and a general better experience. You know, just a quick video that explains that would have been great. You know, just shadow drop a quick video on your YouTube platforms, maybe Twitter or Nintendo Today app. You promote it, it answers those questions that some people might have, those who may not know or didn't know that, you know, you can just take your games, pop them in your Switch 2, and they work better you know, for the most part, they work better, they run better, they look better. You know, that would have been great to do. Like, it's just automatic. There's no gimmicks, there's no patches, there's no updates for this. You just pop it in and it works. And I mean, I've done some basic testing. I haven't done anything as advanced as, say, other you know, sites like Digital Foundry, other people who are doing frame rate tests and things like that. I'm just playing the games, recording the footage, and just eyeballing it and looking at it. And when I'm playing, you can feel it plays better. You can see it plays better. You can see it hitting a locked frame rate of whatever the target was, be it 30 or 60. You can see that the image quality is slightly sharper. It's not as blurry. It's not as janky. You can see things like stutter and frame time skips and jumps and all of that stuff that really pulls you out of the immersion of a game is gone on the Switch 2, just straight out the box. No updates, no patches, just raw performance boost straight out the box. And that is fantastic. I mean, there are games out there that are hitting locked frame rates that they would have hit on the Switch, that are visually hitting the target resolutions that they would never have hit on the original Switch, and they are just leaps and bounds ahead better on the Switch 2. And it's such a shame, because I really wish Nintendo would publicize how good their backwards compatibility is on the Nintendo Switch 2, because it's kind of left up to YouTubers and other people to, you know, do their comparison videos and say, hey, this is really good. You know, I tested Batman Arkham Knight, which is atrocious on the Switch 1, absolutely atrocious. It doesn't hit anywhere close to its 30 frames per second target in any way, shape or form. And it is a blurry mess. Put it in the Switch 2, the image quality is slightly better, but it hits a rock solid 30 frames per second. It's actually playable. The Batmobile sections, which were unplayable, I don't care what anyone says, the Batmobile sections in Batman Arkham Knight on the Switch were just unplayable. It was janky, it was too much stutter, skipping all over the place, just the frame rate just tanks, it hits the floor. It is rock solid on the Switch 2, and it's playable. I can actually drive around Gotham, you know, and not, you know, people don't think I'm an absolute madman with the driving. I tested, you know, games like Astral Chain, looks fantastic on the Switch 2 and rock solid frame rate, no issues. But from what I've played so far, backwards compatibility on the Switch 2 is flipping amazing. And like, it just, I don't know, it's a very Nintendo way of doing it, but I feel like they've done a disservice to themselves by not promoting and advertising how good backwards compatibility is. My neighbor, for example, we were just chatting the other day, and she said, oh, her son is 6 years old, wanted to get a Switch 2, but she was concerned that, you know, none of his games would work. And I said, oh, no, all his games, you know, the majority of his games are going to work. Backwards compatibility is really good. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that. Like I said, I've got one, and, you know, the games just work. You put them in and they generally run better. So, you know, it's like, that's just a small example, but there are people out there who have no idea if their Switch 1 games will work on the Switch 2. And, you know, there could be parents out there who are thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to buy Switch 2 because what happens to all his current games? They don't know. And another thing, she didn't know about his controllers and things like that, whether they would work as well. So I think Nintendo is having a bit of a communication issue with some of its potential or existing customers, in that things that they may not, you know, these are parents who may not even know what a Nintendo Direct is, who are not checking Nintendo websites, might just see an advert on the TV, or, you know, commuting to and from work about Switch 2, or their kid comes home and says, oh, I want to Switch 2, etc., and the parent is not going out there to find that information. They're just thinking, okay, Switch 2, yeah, but what about your games? What about your controllers? Is this going to work? So, you know, when it comes to backwards compatibility, Nintendo, please shout this from the rooftops. Your backwards compatibility is the best you have ever done on any Nintendo console. It is up there with the PlayStation 5. It is up there with the Xbox Series. Publicize it, put some adverts out about it, put it on your Nintendo app, for God's sake, and let people know of this amazing feature. So that's just a quick video to talk about it, because I feel like it's just not out there. Like, this should be, you know, we should be singing Nintendo's praise when they do good, as much as we drag them through the mud when they're doing stuff that pisses us off, like game key cards. So, do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's really good. Backwards compatibility on the Nintendo Switch 2 is amazing. And there's somebody who has well over 100, probably close to 150 physical Nintendo Switch cartridges on a shelf, and you know, a digital library as well, having that backwards compatibility straight out of the box, no patches, you just pop your game in and it just works and it plays better, is I don't know how to explain the feeling of just popping in something like Bayonetta 3 and seeing it run at a locked 60 in all its glorious sassiness. And you know, other games as well that just run great. Astral Chain just runs great. Batman Arkham Knight, still a bit of a blurry mess, but still runs great. Vampire, still a blurry mess, but it's a stable 30 frames per second. I can actually play the game, I can actually have combat on it, you know, and enjoy it, you know, really well. Silly games like Maneater that I did a comparison video for recently, really great. Like a locked frame rate on that game, image quality is slightly improved, but it is playable. It's things like that that just bring me joy when it comes to the Switch 2, because that was always a concern with backwards compatibility. So yeah, Nintendo, please publicize this feature. It's flipping amazing. What are you doing? Anyway, that will do it for this video, and I will see you lovely people on the next one. Cheers.